All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Crew Show with a little 49er video as former Niner safety Tashaun Gipson gets suspended today. We'll discuss that coming up next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Go buy Pig and a Pickle, get some brisket chili. Go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. And this video is brought to you by our good friends at Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. All right, former Niners safety Tashaun Gipson, according to Aaron Wilson of KPRC2 in the city of Houston, Texas, Gipson's been suspended for the first 6 games of the 2024 season. Now, it's unclear why the suspension was handed down. Gipson spent the last 2 seasons as the 49ers starting free safety. He's currently a free agent, and his suspension could wind up deterring teams from signing him. He's 34 years old, and it makes you wonder if this suspension will almost force Gipson into retirement at 34. He started all 33 games he played for the Niners the last 2 seasons, racked up 6 interceptions. He's a very much of a productive interceptor. He's got great ball skills. And I think he's got close to 40 career interceptions, 11 pass breakups, though, with the Niners, 1.5 sacks in those 6 interceptions. And it didn't sound like there was a reunion was in the works. I would say now that's almost entirely off the table. There's almost no chance that the 49ers, who still could use some safety help and had not totally ruled out a return of Tashaun Gipson, but I got to think that this is probably the end of any hopes of Gipson coming back here. It is interesting, though, when you look at Adam Schefter was quoted saying, Tashaun Gipson's been suspended by the commissioner for the first 6 games of the 2024 season. He is eligible to sign and participate in all preseason activities, including games. His suspension will take effect as the roster as of the roster reduction to 53 players. So, I mean, Schefter clarified in a later tweet that Gipson was suspended due to a violation of, Schefter clarified in a later tweet that Gipson was suspended due to a violation of the performance enhancing drug policy. So, that's interesting. So the Niners are going to have a new safety. He's unsigned. He's going to be 34 in August. They're probably not going to bring him back. And so, that's interesting. The NFL's Transaction Wire also announced Gipson's suspension, but the cause wasn't provided by them either. So we'll see. Gipson gave the 49ers some high-quality snaps for sure at safety the last couple of years. He played well. Not only that, he was a leader on the defense. They signed him off the street ahead of the 2022 regular season. And, he's not the best player in coverage, but he's got a good nose for the football. If there's a ball in the air, Gipson's got a great chance of coming down with it. That's what that was the part of his game that was so attractive. After having Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tart, those guys just had the worst ball skills of all time. They were physical linebacker type players who hit, but they just didn't come away with very many interceptions. Now, I don't think Gipson's coverage ability is that great at all, especially now in his early 30s. But what he is a guy that if the ball pops into the air, he's got a great nose for it. So I think the Niners are looking at kind of a safety youth movement. I mean, they're going to have Talanoa Hufanga, Jair Brown, the rookie Malik Mustafa. You also have George Odom, the special teamer. There's some other guys out there that they might want to go after. Lewis Seen and Richie Grant are a couple safeties that may get cut by their respective teams at the cut down. Justin Simmons is out there. I do think the Niners are likely to bring in one more safety between now and the beginning of the regular season. And I think there was a chance that it was going to be Tashaun Gipson. And I think now the chances of that being Gipson are almost non-existent. I think they'll go in a different direction before they'll go with Gipson. And as I said, I like Gipson. He wasn't great in run support. He wasn't a tremendously, he didn't provide, really, really tight coverage. What he was a smart player. He was heady. He oftentimes was in the right place at the right time. He got guys lined up correctly. I think he helped the development of the young DBs in that secondary by just his presence in the room, just watching film and being the professional veteran. And I think if he hadn't had the suspension, there's a chance that Lynch and Shanahan would bring him back to kind of man that same role. Let's see if you can make the team. You got a lot of young DBs. Maybe you can help bring them along. Maybe you can coach them along during film study, and help develop them into, players that are ready to see the field right away. But now with this suspension, I would say the chances of the 49ers signing Tashaun Gipson are not good. Not good. And yet, if you look at the depth chart, safety is, the 49ers are a very deep football team, but they've got a couple of spots where they're pretty thin. I mean, if you look across their roster, they've got a bunch of wide receivers. They're only going to keep 5 or 6, and they probably have double that. The addition of Dominic Pooney and Drake Nugent and Kingston and Bryson Mays and Chris Hubbard, they added some bodies on the offensive line, even though none of them are slated to start. They've got good depth there. But they're a little thin at tight end. They're they're pretty deep everywhere else, at quarterback, running back, offensive line, wide receiver. But on the offense, they're a little thin at tight end. On the defense, they got a bunch of defensive linemen. They're maybe a little pretty deep at defensive tackle, a little thin at defensive end, where Leonard Floyd, Nick Bosa, Yatir Gross-Matos, and after that, we don't know about Drake Jackson or Robert Beal or anybody after that. They're maybe a little thin at linebacker, but they still have D. Winters and Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles and Jalen Graham, and they drafted Tatum Bethune. So they've got some bodies there. And they've got some bodies at corner, with Lenore and Womack and Chase Lucas and Renardo Green and Isaac Yadam and Rock Ya-Sin and Mooney Ward and Ambry Thomas and Darrell Luter. I mean, they are pretty fortified at corner. But at safety, you've got Jair Brown coming off of a year where he played more football than he's ever played before, and he said his body's still tired from last year. And then you got Afonga coming off an ACL, trying to be back for week 1, but there's no promises. Odom, who's a career special teamer. Mustafa, who kind of played the bandit role at Wake where he was everywhere, but how does he transition to an NFL safety spot? Eric Harris is a street free agent in his 30s. Taylor Hawkins, undrafted college free agent, getting a third look in camp. Jalen Mahoney's an undrafted free agent. They're thin. I mean, they could definitely, and that's a physical position. You lose players at safety. So they could definitely use a player. And I did another video on, Lewis Seen and Richie Grant. A lot of speculation about Justin Simmons. But there was an article about a month ago saying that John Lynch would not rule out the possibility of having Tashaun Gipson return to the team, but I got to think that that's no longer the case. So Tashaun Gipson suspended for the first 6 games of the upcoming season, and can he get a gig? Can he get a job when he's going to have to miss the first 6 games, or is he going to be a guy that's a street free agent that is on the street in the middle of the year after those 6 games are after he gives out his 6 games and serves his 6-game suspension? Does he still want to play? Does he have teams interested? Maybe the Niners will have some interest then, but this should do a serious blow, you would think, to the chances of Tashaun Gipson getting signed this summer. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Underdog Fantasy for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.